So, the promise of this little talk that I'm going to give to you, I want to give you another reason why self care is so important, especially right now. So, I'm going to give you an additional why of what it really means. And then I want to give you a thought that I haven't heard expressed before of how we can think about self care and the different modes of self care. So those are the sort of promises, and I don't want to make this a super long talk, but anyway, I just wanted to give you a little taste up front so that there's a reason to listen to me speaking for a little while here. So let's start with that why. We are in unprecedented times. I know that's so overused because if we probably looked at all of human history, what we're seeing now is not actually unprecedented, but certainly in my lifetime, it's unprecedented. And it's a very unstable time. If we were to even take the politics here in the United States out of it and just look at it from a higher perspective, you could say it's unstable. Everything, it just seems like our political systems, our economic systems, government system, everything, it's just kind of unstable and we don't know what's going to happen next. I go to a business mastermind and have a lot of other business owners that I talk to. And for them, it drives them crazy. And I actually said that to one of my business mentors recently. It just I can't predict what's going to happen. I don't know if there's going to be any business at all or not, or what's going to happen. So it's unstable for all of us, I think. Latest thing here in the United States is potential government shutdown. How will that affect everything? It could, especially for research, it could affect things in a big way. It's an unstable, trying time. And I'm going to make the argument that ultimately, if you want to find stability, whatever stability you can in an unstable time like this, it has to start from the inside. It can't start from trying to go anchor yourself to something else outside of you to find your stability. That's not going to work because who knows if that thing you anchor yourself to will have the stability you need or want, or might too topple or be unstable. So the only place we can ever truly find stability is that internal stability, the internal sort of anchor and truth and beauty and integrity of who we are and anchoring ourselves in that. That's ultimately where stability starts. And then from that inner stability, then to start to build networks with other people who have also built their own bits of stability, to build networks and communities of people that are even stronger than an individual alone. But it starts with the individuals. It doesn't start with just, I'm going to build a community and find my stability in my community. If you come in as an unstable person into that community, you will be like a boat, like a sailboat on the ocean that just goes whichever way the wind goes. And that's not stability. And we so much need this. We all need this. And yet there's so little encouragement and support right now for us, I think, at least that's my observation, to find that inner stability because a lot of us are being asked to get involved politically and we're being asked to like just, you know, do the work despite who knows what's going to happen if funding is going to be there. There are just so many different messages and people pulling us in different directions and nobody's saying, you know what, you should just like get yourself like internally stable. Who says that to you? Well, I'm saying I'm here to say that to you. We're here to say that to you. But who else says that to you? Nobody supports that or encourages that, really. But it's critical to this time. I've been saying this about grant writing recently, too, that because things are so topsy-turvy, I'm seeing that the clients that show up, the clients we work with, are often even more scattered, more confused, more anxious. And guess what? It's those same people or same types of people who are going to be going in and reviewing grants. So if you've got a reviewer who's anxious, who's just scattered, who's overwhelmed by everything, who's just wondering, am I going to even have a lab in 6 months? And then here your grant proposal is, and it's a little bit scattered, a little bit confused, a little bit, they're not really sure what you're doing. Do you think that that's going to make the situation better for you or for them? Definitely not. So what I've been encouraging people is that clarity matters now more than ever, that making the science in the grant proposal solid is so important so that when it shows up, the reviewer can sit down and have almost a reprieve from the current environment of all being pulled in all of these different directions. And then they read this proposal and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like I momentarily escaped into this fantasy land of this grant proposal, this story of this grant proposal, and I was engaged and I was interested, and I left this feeling a little bit better than I came into it. And I'm just using the example of grants to really illustrate this point that if you want funding these days, you have to do that in your grants. But more generally, if you want to be successful as a leader and just feel okay about yourself in this current environment, you also have to find that inner stability, that inner clarity. And I think that comes back to self-care. I think really it's an element or a mode of self-care that I'm going to argue or advocate for, maybe argue is maybe a kind of a, I don't know, sounds like I'm going to argue with you. That's not my intention behind that. I'm going to offer that one aspect of self-care comes down to this notion of self-integrity. When I first heard that term integrity years ago from some business mentor somewhere who was, the guy was going on about integrity. I was like, integrity? What do you mean? That I don't lie? Well, I don't try to lie, so what do you mean? But I think there's something, as I've explored this concept over the years, something much deeper about integrity. It really implies a sense of sort of wholeness, togetherness, things working together right within us, and not being contradictory, confusing, scattered, but instead being integral, which is the source of the word integrity, integral. We are integral within ourselves. I think that's ultimately what self-care can help do for us, is it can help us come back to wholeness, to integrity with ourselves, come back to who we are and connect with that and be that and bring that out into the world. And that relates to another thing that I've observed about what's going on out there in the world right now. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed both a phenomenon and then an explanation for the phenomenon. So the phenomenon is it just seems like a lot of sort of secret stuff has been exposed over the last 2 months. Like a lot of like people who were once hiding in the dark with certain ideologies or whatever, it's just they're all coming out and, saying, this is who I am, even if from my viewpoint, it might be very evil or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is it's almost like many people are just taking the masks off, and that we're wanting as a species sort of to get to the truth of things more. We crave that sort of sense of truth. And it relates to a thing that I've heard on the business side. Somebody that I know and respect on the business side has said, we are in a trust recession, which means that nobody trusts anything because, we've been, I mean, it's very clear that there are lies, there's a lot of fake stuff out there now. There's a lot of, you can doctor images with AI, you can create videos with AI, audios. You can do so much now. You can create fake stuff. And the more of this fake stuff that gets out there, the more we're like, we want the real. And I think that goes back to that integrity. We want the real. I think we crave that. And I think it's that craving that's starting to produce an uncovering of who is the real person behind these words or behind these videos or behind these grant proposals or whatever it is. And I think that this idea of self integrity is the solution to that. If you are somebody who is used to the old ways of doing things, which were often not in an integrity, you show up and you say, "Hey, everything's great. We're the best people on the planet. We do the best research." I mean, there are literally people who write grants like that who just they're constantly, it's because of who they know and who they've brown nosed or whatever that um they make their way in the world. And I just think right now the demand is for somebody to show up as who you are, flaws and all, but to show up as who you are, integral and whole. And the more you are integral, the more you are whole, the more powerfully you will show up because you will not have to make excuses for the things that you're not good at or that you aren't great about because you will be shining so much in what you are great at and what you really do best, that people will appreciate that about you. And if you're truthful about the flaws or the limitations, or you've found ways to, for example, have team members or partners or whoever that help, sort of offset those flaws, then there's no problem there. It's the problem these days is the lack of integrity. So I think that we have to find that integrity. I think history, I think the current moment is demanding that of us. And the people who are willing to show up in that integrity, in that truth of who we are. It's not a political party, it's not a whatever, it's just who we are. That is what is going to lead the way forward, make you into a leader, even though you're not trying to be a leader in doing that. Just by doing that, you will become much more of a powerful and clear leader by simply doing this for yourself. I think the reason any person goes down a negative path in life is the feeling of, oh, I need to do that thing. I need to cheat a little because I don't think I have it in me to do it the hard way, regular way. So I need to cheat a little or lie a little or have a little deception. And I'll tell you, I've never intentionally lied in, for example, my marketing in my business. But I will say in the past, I have had times when I have felt like, well, maybe this course or this product isn't really quite ready, but I felt okay, but I have to hype it up because that's what's expected of me in marketing. That was at the time. I try not to do that anymore. But so I would, try to like hype it up some. And, I got away with that as many of us did in so many different areas of life. And I just think now is not the time to do that. So, what that comes back to is that if we are going to reveal our true selves, be in integrity, and reveal our true selves of who we are, if we're really being called to take the mask off, well, then there better be something there, something of integrity that's there. And the only way I know to achieve that is the self care, is really taking care of ourselves more than just feeding ourselves and eating good foods and taking walks. I mean, those are all important aspects of self-care, but I think there's so much more to self-care. And I think this goes to the sort of a little bit about the how. I'm not going to go super deep into it, but I had this realization. It was actually while we were talking at the beginning of the call that there really are different modes of this self-care, of how we take care of ourselves. There certainly is the body self-care, and even the mind, and then you could say the spirit self-care, just the connection to like greater purpose of some kind. Um, I think there are other ones though too. There's this integrity thing I've been talking about, just really feeling like you are being true to yourself in all ways in your life. And I think that that impacts things like, are you operating out of alignment? Like if, let's say in your work, for example, if you're being called, if inside your heart of hearts, you're excited about one avenue of research, for example, and you're really excited about that, and you really want to pursue that, but you feel like, okay, well, no, nobody will support that, or that's not fundable. So I got to do this thing over here that's fundable, and I'm just gonna write proposals on that. That is out of integrity. That is out of alignment, because that's saying, well, I am dismissing that this signal that is coming from inside of me that says, this is exciting, this is interesting. I'm dismissing that and saying, no, I can't find some intellectual justification for you right now. I'm too fearful to pursue you right now. So I'm just going to set you aside, and I'm going to do something else. And believe me, I've done that more than once in my life. And it's one of the few things I truly regret in my life, is not pursuing some of the ideas that I knew were interesting and exciting, but then maybe I got some external discouragement and I just dropped them. Now, I understand there's practicality. I understand that in this particular example that I've used of this, that sometimes you may have to pursue a project that's not the most exciting one in order to keep things funded. That's okay, but if you do that and then get sucked into that and drop the thing that was actually exciting and inspiring to you, as I have done, then you will find that you get just sucked in, and you are then living out of integrity, because the things that truly inspire and excite you are things that you're not doing anything with, and the thing that you're pursuing is sort of like, yeah, it's okay, but it's not really why you're here on the planet. It's not going to feed you in terms of meaning and spirit. So that's an example of self-care, is, are we operating in alignment, doing what we truly enjoy? And the same thing is for people. I think somebody mentioned the people that were around, and I think that's another aspect of self-care. Are we caring for ourselves by being around the people who might inspire us or that we might enjoy? Or are we being around people just out of perceived obligation, perceived duty, perceived, whatever it is? Are we spending a lot of time with people that we otherwise wouldn't spend time with if we could truly choose, but we don't feel like we have a choice? Well, that's actually out of integrity. Having boundaries is a mode of having integrity. It's having clear boundaries that protect you and preserve who you are and what you want, and say, I'm not going to accept less than. I mean, maybe temporarily, but long term, no, I'm going to pursue what is truly in alignment and truly fulfilling for me and enjoyable for me. And again, I'll tell you, my own example of this, my own example is that I have always been curious about consciousness, and I pursued artificial intelligence and physics and then biology, and none of those fields gave me the answers that were really satisfying to, where does our consciousness come from? And so I started in about 15 years ago, really started becoming more open to the idea that there is something deeper going on, some kind of consciousness, some kind of spiritual, whatever, something going on. And so I started opening to that idea and exploring that. And then that built momentum for me. And I really was finding some much more satisfying answers in those pursuits and while still staying grounded in the science. So by 2015, I really came upon a set of beliefs that I feel like are in integrity for me about this topic of sort of how I believe we live. We are sort of consciousness that enters these bodies. It's not that these bodies just produce consciousness as a side effect. That's my own view. I'm not trying to give anybody what your view should be. That's just my own view that I came upon. And I wanted to do something more with that in my writings, in my teaching, in my mentoring. And I did a little bit. Some people pushed back because it's kind of, woo woo, especially 10 years ago. People are opening to it a little bit more now. Some people are. But back then, there was pushback. So eventually I was just like, no, I can't do any of that. I pretty much shut that down and just went with the stuff that I thought, was safe, like grant writing. I enjoy the grant writing, but is it my life's purpose here on this planet? No, it's not. It is not my life's purpose. My life's purpose is to help raise awareness that science and spirit are not two totally disparate things, but they can be brought together. That is my life's purpose. And it's only in the last couple months where finally I was like, things are so bad and weird out there. I don't even know if I'm going to have a business in 3 months. I mean, we're still here. Good. Yay. But, depending on what happens with academia and all of that, who knows, right? I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen. I was like, would I be happy not having pursued this in some way? And the answer was no, I would be very regretful if I didn't pursue it. So then I just started doing some stuff. I created a Substack channel, just started posting videos, making videos. And it's really only been in the last month that I've done that. But I will tell you, being in that integrity of at least doing something with that, sharing my true perspective and not caring if some people will laugh at it or ridicule it or say, you're weird or whatever, just doing it in integrity has given me more energy and more inspiration than I've had in years. Even given all of the dark stuff going on out there, I now feel more energized. Is it perfect? No. So I just share that example with you because I'm not saying you need to follow my path. That was my path. But what is your path? What is it that is within you that's not being fully expressed, that you're hiding away? Because when you hide it away and your communication doesn't convey the truth of who you are or what you're passionate about, then that's not in full integrity. And again, I would say that's a form of self-care to bring yourself back into that integrity, because that's going to be so powerful. When you really stand in your truth, it is attractive, more attractive. I'm not talking about like sexually attractive or something, but it's attractive in terms of just it's magnetic. When you are speaking from your truth of who you are, it's magnetic. And there are so few people who do that well. But again, we're not doing this in order to be magnetic. We're doing this just because we want to do self-care, because we want to be in integrity with ourselves, because we want to find stability from the inside out. I'll wrap this up by just saying, I think there are multiple facets or multiple modes of self-care. There are the traditional ones, the body, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, giving yourself breaks, rests, all of that stuff is so important. And that there's some other stuff that doesn't get talked about as much. Are you truly being in integrity, in alignment, in the truth of who you are, and sharing that truth rather than hiding that?